Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to The Engine. Today, we've got a very special video for you guys today. Exclusive interview with not Ian Eagle, but Noah Eagle today. Noah, how are you, man?
I'm doing well. I mean, not as well as you are with all of your posters behind you and a variety of uniforms and people who have moved on to different teams, but doing well nonetheless.
Yeah, so for an introduction, today we are lucky to interview sports broadcaster Noah Eagle. Noah recently attended Syracuse University, like his father, Ian Eagle, who we interviewed. Now Noah is the Clippers radio play-by-play announcer at only 22 years old. Absolutely crazy. A really cool fun fact about that is he's only the second NBA radio play-by-play announcer to come straight out of college at Syracuse University. The first was in 1984. We're so stoked to talk to you about your experience as an up-and-coming announcer, already up there, but you still got much more to go at your young age. And we're so grateful to have you on the show. Noah, how's your quarantine been? This is a crazy time. How have you been?
Crazy indeed. I've been doing well. I've been trying to stay busy and stay productive, which in my mind is watching as many TV shows and movies as physically. Up and coming, I hope that also means physically. Do I continue to grow physically? Because I'd like a couple extra inches added to my measurables. That'd be helpful in just normal everyday life. But other than that, other than hoping to grow randomly in the middle of the night, which isn't going to happen, I'm doing well, and I'm excited for the potential return of the NBA.
Are you going to try out for the Clippers once you grow?
I think that I could get a 10-day. I've been shooting outside in my driveway. I'm a driveway all-star, a 3-time driveway all-star, and I really feel like if I committed to it, I could get a 10-day. I don't know if I could get a second 10-day, but they did just sign Joakim Noah just before the quarantine was in effect. Joakim Noah could turn into Noah Eagle very quickly. I don't know. These things kind of happen.
Guess if you just move the letters around, but
right.
Yeah.
It's like the transitive property.
Pretty much, yeah. I've noticed it immediately, but I've read in every single article that you're mature. I even saw a quote that said he's 22 going on 52. But then I read another quote of yours that says, I'm an old soul living in a young body, and I will try as much to get a quote from Airplane while at the same time to drop a lyric from the new A Boogie with the Hoodie album. Would you say you lean one way towards Airplane or the A Boogie with the Hoodie album when you're announcing?
Good question. Honestly, I'm not sure. I like to tell people that I'm probably 55-year-old inside, and I don't know. I think that I can go both ways. I think that's what I try to do to almost set myself apart a little bit and try to connect with as many people and as many audience members as possible, is try to relate to a wide variety of people. So bringing knowledge out about the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s while continuing my forte, if you will, of the 2000s and what I grew up in, the era I grew up in, and things that things that have just become second nature to me within culture, within sport. So I don't know if I lean either way. I think I just try to incorporate a little bit of everything and try to connect with as many people as possible in doing so.
I feel like the new style of announcing, or play-by-play announcing at least, is just play-by-playing the game. The old style is putting your morals into it. Say somebody gets hit, like big hit, and you say, oh, that was a big hit. Would you say that you put your morals into it, or do you say you just call the game straight?
Yeah, I try not to include myself in the action. The biggest thing, and one of the biggest things, at least, that I learned at Syracuse was it's not about you. It's not about the broadcaster. People aren't tuning in, at least for the most part, saying, I can't wait to hear what Noah Eagle has to say. They're tuning in or watching or whatever it may be to see or listen to what happens. So I let the game dictate that. Now I include my personality and I let that come out. So if something happens and I think I can make a joke about it, I'm going to do it. And if you listen to so it's me talking to myself for hours, which most people, when they talk to themselves, people say that's weird, but I actually get paid to do it. So that's kind of cool. It's like a weird opposite day thing for my life. It's an opposite life, I guess. But for me, like I said, I want the action to dictate where I'm going. The action's going to drive the bus. I'm just there for the ride. And with it, I get to almost sprinkle a little bit of fun, sprinkle my own ideals, I guess, along with the other passengers on that bus. But at the end of the day, I'm not driving the bus. The game is, and I'm following along.
When we interviewed Jason Benetti, another Syracuse alum who has become a play-by-play announcer, White Sox announcer, he told us that he finds himself rooting for the White Sox when he announces. Do you think you're a Clippers fan now? Do you find yourself rooting for the Clippers when you're announcing games?
First of all, Jason Benetti is a good friend. He's actually the person who showed me around Syracuse University the first time I ever visited the campus, and love the man. And he is one of the best broadcasters in the business right now, not just in Chicago, everywhere. Everything he does is fantastic. So love Jason. I'm glad you guys had a chance to talk to him. But for me, yes, I would say that deep down you want the team that you're following and you're around and the guys you're getting to know, you want them to succeed. And a big thing, I guess a positive for me, is that the people in charge at the Clippers want connection with the fans. They wanted to almost bridge the gap. So my job for the Clippers and what they expect of me is to bridge that gap between the players and the fans, or the coaching staff and the fans, and to make us all feel like one unit. So the best I can do that is to call it exciting when the Clippers are doing well and call it as it is when they aren't. Now, let's say we're playing the Memphis Grizzlies, which we did. Obviously, we played them several times this year. In the second game against Memphis at Staples Center this year, John Morant put a move on Jerome Robinson, who's no longer with the team, but he destroyed him. He broke his ankles on the right wing. And the entire crowd at Staples Center, this is mostly Clipper fans, oohed and awed, because that's just a natural reaction. So for me, calling the game, I still need to go with a natural reaction, or else it's going to sound wrong. So I called it as an exciting play, but then I quickly returned to, all right, how can I view this in the lens of the Clippers? And how can I say, well, this is fine, the Clippers are going to be okay. And so it's a fine line that you have to walk between being professional and still understanding I work for this team, and the people who are tuning in to me want to hear how great everything is for this team, but I need to still tell it as it is. So it's a fine line, but I think it gets easier the more you do it.
So with the lens of the Clippers, when I was in Los Angeles over winter break, I saw a lot of posters saying we're going to be all-stars. Were you a part of that? Did you like that?
So I wouldn't say it was as much of voting for him for all-star. Pat Beverly's from Chicago. I hope you guys know that. And he embodies Chicago and loves the city of Chicago. So for him, with all-star being back at Chicago this year, he just wanted to be a part of it in some way. And he ended up doing so, being in the skills competition for the first time in 5 years when he won it back here in New York, actually, where I am now, in 2015. So for him, I think he just wanted to be there in some way, shape, or form. I think that's what that had to do. I don't think he saw it that he was going to be making any all-star teams. I don't know how many of the guys on the Clippers. I would say 4 of them had some hope of a chance, and those 4 were Kawhi, who made it, Paul, who didn't really for injury concerns and injury reasons, Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell. Both those guys at points this year were averaging near 20 points per game, having excellent seasons off the bench. Now, Kawhi was the only one who ends up on the team, but that's what's so great, I feel like, about this organization is, first of all, the team unity. Everybody's going to pick each other up, and everyone believes that they are just as big as everybody else. It's no one is looked at as ahead of anyone within that organization. Everyone feels that it's a team effort, and if you want to win a title, you have to do it as a group. So the mutual respect is there. But the other thing is just the depth of this team and achievements within the league. If you look at the San Antonio Spurs dynasty or the Bulls dynasty, or if you look – actually, let's take the Bulls because the Last Dance just finished up, and we can use that as an example. When Michael left to go play baseball and ended up signing that contract with the White Sox organization, the Bulls ended up having 3 All-Stars the next year. Scotty, B.J. Armstrong, and I believe Horace Grant was still on the team and made the All-Star team. So you've got 3 guys instead of potentially just Michael and Scotty making an all-star team because Michael's out of the equation and now things – so the team's success and the depth of the team, if Montrezl Harrell was on a different team right now, he absolutely could be an all-star in the Eastern Conference this season. Lou Williams could be an all-star in a different situation, but they've sacrificed themselves for the greater good of this group. And I think that's what I have felt really reign through and reign true this entire season with the Clippers is it's one common goal for the common group and for the common man. And they have certainly worked as hard as they can and as smart as they can and try and reach that goal. So, yes, I think that you'll see that type of stuff when you're in LA, but at the end of the day, they care about the team success more than the personal stuff.
You seem like you're really excited and ready for the NBA season to just get back to starting. What do you think's a normal? What do you think's a solution?
A lot of the rumors, Disney seems like the most viable option to me. The last 2 summers, I've actually worked with Fox Sports at the Junior NBA Global Championship, and the last 2 years were the first 2 years of its existence. Basically, the NBA is creating their own equivalent of the Little League World Series, where the top 13 and 14-year-olds across the world all come to one location and they all duke it out, basically, and they play for this grand title of global champion at that age. And it's always or the first 2 years at least, I shouldn't say always, it's been 2 years, but both of those years, both of those summers, it was held at the Wide World of Sports Complex in Orlando at Disney, right on the property. And it's the perfect spot to me. There's tons of space. There are plenty of facilities, even just outside of that facility where you can have up to, I think, 3 or 4 courts at a time. But there's facilities nearby. And the most important part, I think, about all of this to me is they want to create this bubble. The NBA does. So if you can create the bubble, you need to make sure that you're basically only including the people that are included in this season, that are going to be needed in this season, the players, the coaches, and essential staff. And so the best way to do it is to seclude them from the rest of society, basically. The other places that they're recommending, Vegas has been a big one. People are still going to be in Vegas that aren't specific way that they're talking about it. There are hotels that are Disney property. There are lofts and places for these players to stay long term that are Disney property, and the NBA could basically rent out for themselves. So if they really want to create this bubble and they want to have plenty of space to do it, that makes the most sense. Now, I've heard a couple of different ways that they can go about it. The big question is, can they get the testing to do it? Once the testing is no longer a question, no longer a concern, I'd say they're going to be full steam ahead. I'd expect at least 5 regular season games and then go into the postseason, and we'll find a champion.
All right. Thank you so much, Nick Falk.
All right. So first question, how have you kept your announcing game up during this quarantine? No games to announce. So have you been practicing any methods? How have you been keeping it really, really high?
Good question. I would say a couple things. I'm not the type of person that's going to follow my dog around and announce what he's doing throughout the day, even if he wouldn't hear me. I don't think he would like that very much. So I'm not going to do that. I'm not the person who's just going to try and find certain ways to, mess with my voice or anything like that. I've done that stuff in the past, and I feel like now I'm at the point where the best thing I can do for myself is anytime there's an old game on, I'm going to watch it and I'm going to listen to what the broadcasters are saying. And listen to 5 minutes, like really take the time to sit down and say to myself, okay, how can I improve? And the third thing is just continue to research more and more about the league. So The Last Dance was an easy way to do it, just to get more information. Anytime I watch a hardwood classic game on NBA TV, if there's a player on there that I'm like, I wonder how they got to this team, I go back on Basketball Reference and I end up on a rabbit hole of finding out Detlef Schrempf was traded from point A to point B to point C, and that's why he ended up with Seattle. Things like that. So I would say those are the things I'm doing from an NBA perspective. But from a broadcasting perspective, I'm not muting my 2K games and calling it none of that stuff. I'm waiting for the real thing again. But I would recommend any of that for aspiring broadcasters, aspiring play-by-play broadcasters. The best thing you can do is get reps. So if that's the best way for you to get reps, do it right now. You have plenty of time to do it, and you're going to get better just doing a little bit every day. Call a quarter every day. There's endless games on the internet. So it's an option. I haven't decided to go that route throughout this quarantine.
Yeah, so, that sounds like a really interesting way to do it. I know we would all love watching hardwood classics and finding out where different players came from. All right, so Nick mentioned earlier that you're the Los Angeles Clippers radio play-by-play announcer. That is just an amazing job, a dream job, especially for a 22-year-old. How did you get that job?
It was an interesting story. So I'm at Syracuse last year in my senior year, and I'm starting to think about, okay, what's the future hold for me? What's my move? And I decided that I was going to wait until in the latter months, really, of my senior year. I wanted to enjoy my senior year, and I trusted that things were going to work out for the best, and I felt like I was putting my best foot forward from a broadcasting perspective, and I had done things in the past that was going to help set me up. So I wasn't too worried necessarily about it. But what ended up happening was around February, I got an email or a text message from a professor at Syracuse. Her name is Olivia Stomsky. And Professor Stomsky has worked in the industry for many years, and she continues to work in the industry as a producer, director, behind the scenes, behind the camera. But she's very successful, and the majority of her work happens on the West Coast. She's from the West Coast, and she knows a lot of people still on the West Coast. And basically, she reached out to me, and she said, hey, can you send me your best basketball reel and a resume? And I said, what? She said, someone's interested. I don't want to tell you who it is, but send me your best stuff, the best stuff you have. Put it together and just shoot it my way. I said, can you please be more specific? So she said, just give me this amount of minutes of basketball, play-by-play, sideline report, whatever you've done in basketball, and your resume. So I did it. She didn't tell me who it was for. And she said, you know where I work, you know my connections, you can try to connect the dots yourself. So I said, all right. I mean, I don't really know who it is. I'm just going to let it fly, and that's that. And so a couple weeks go by, maybe even a full month and a half, I hear nothing. And we had gone to the NCAA tournament last year. It was in Salt Lake City, Utah. We lost in the first round of Baylor. We ended up having to stay because you have to book it as if you're going to win that game and continue on. So I fly back from the West Coast back to Syracuse, and I had a radio show I'd been doing once a week on Monday nights called The Student Section on ESPNU radio for Sirius XM. I loved it. It was a ton of fun. It was about college sports. I was driving to that radio show on a Monday night, mid-March, late March, and I got a call from a number I didn't have from Los Angeles, and I'd been getting a lot of solicitor calls, and I was this close to not picking it up because I had been tired of it. But most of those solicitor calls hadn't been coming from LA. So I decided to pick it up, and it was this deep, booming voice. It says, hi, I'm looking for Noah Eagle. I said, yeah. And he said, this is Nick Davis from Fox Sports West. As I'm sure you're aware, Ralph Lawler with the Clippers is retiring, and we're looking for his replacement. Your name came up, and we'd like to have you fly out, interview, and audition with us next week. I was like, what? Are you sure you have the right person? He goes, yes. And so from there, basically I had started working with an agent. I forwarded to my agent. They set up the meetings. I fly out, and keep in mind, I'm still in school. So I flew out, I interviewed, and the interview, I think I got lucky with the timing. I got lucky with a lot of this. Obviously, a lot of this is timing, but the timing of when my interview was extraordinarily lucky, because it was during the first round of the playoffs last year. And my interview was the day after Game 5 of the first round of the Clippers and Warriors series. And the Clippers had handled the Warriors that night before at Oracle Arena on the road. It wasn't a 31-point comeback, but it was their second win of the series. And they basically controlled it the entire time. So I'm going in now thinking, all right, maybe things are going to be okay. Like, they're going to be excited. They're going to be pumped up that they won this game. They were. And the entire time I was thinking, all right, whatever happens, keep in mind, I'm interviewing for the television position there. Whatever happens is great. This is just an experience that I'm going to be able to pocket no matter what. If I don't get this job, it's just something that I can say, I've been through this before for future experiences. So I go in, I interviewed, and I auditioned that day with Corey Maggette, who I grew up loving Corey Maggette and watching him, another Chicago guy, went to Duke, but it was great. And he's a super nice guy. So I did the audition, did the interview, and I had to take a red eye back to Syracuse because I had to get back to, take a final or something. So I'm still in school. So I get back, I'm back there, and I got another text from my agent saying, hey, Steve Ballmer wants to meet you next week, the owner of the team. I said, okay, where? He said, Seattle. So again, I have to fly from Syracuse to the West Coast to Seattle. I interview one-on-one with Steve Ballmer, who is, I mean, you guys probably know Steve Ballmer. For all of those who don't know him, used to be the CEO of Microsoft. He has over $50 billion to his name. But the crazy part about it is when I sat down with him, if I knew nothing about him, you would not know any of that. Seriously. He was super down to earth, is super down to earth. He asked me questions about broadcasting, about my thoughts on certain things, and genuinely wanted to know the answers. And at the end of the interview, we talked for 90 minutes. I walked out, and he walked me to the elevator, and I just said, Mr. Ballmer, if you give me this job, the Clippers will be my life. And he said, okay, good to know. And I took the elevator down. I took another red eye back to Syracuse that night, and I just waited. And about, 2-3 weeks go by, I end up graduating. And the day after graduation, I actually was in Chicago. I had to fly to Chicago for the G League Elite Camp and the NBA Draft Lottery. So I'm there. I flew back to Syracuse, packed up my stuff for good, and left there to come back home to New Jersey. About a day or two later, I got a call from an LA number, and it was the team president, Gillian Zucker, saying, hi, we've decided to go a different direction in the TV position, but it'll open up our radio position, and we'd like for you to have it. And I was thinking, like, what? Again, unexpected. And she said, take your time, take the weekend to think it over. I took 2 seconds in my mind to think over whether or not I was going to do it. But I took my time. I took the few days, and I called her back and said, I'm all in. And now I'm here.
Wow, that's just an amazing story. So your dad actually showed us what he would do to prepare for games that he's announcing. What do you do to prepare for games? Do you replicate his method, or do you have your own ways?
No, I'm not in the prehistoric age like him. I use the computer. I use Excel. Unfortunately, I'm on my computer to Zoom with you guys right now. And if I was in LA, I could show you how they look printed out. But basically, there's a template, and if anybody who's watching, if you guys want it, if anybody who's watching wants it, just feel free to find me on social media or something, DM me, and I can email you the template. It's very simple. It's very easy to use. And I would say the approach is probably similar. We're looking for similar nuggets and things that we might want to include. The difference is when you're doing it on TV, you're playing to a picture. When you're doing it on radio, and especially when you're doing it alone on radio, it's your canvas. It's a blank canvas, and you get to paint the entire thing. So for me, I know, okay, in this situation, I'm going to need this type of stat. I'm going to need this type of storyline. Let me make sure I have it down. For him, it's like, okay, we know that we're going to have this person. Let me make sure I have their stories more so. So I think that it's just looking for specific things to cater to your type of broadcast. And for me, as the season has gone on, I've fallen more for analytics, and I've found how analytics can help me as a broadcaster and help me paint a better picture. So there are certain things that I think the more that you do it, and the more games you bank, the easier the research gets of, okay, I know what I'm looking for now. I know how I can make my own life easier going into one of these games.
That's some great insight. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that insight as well. So now you're working with the Clippers, who were, or if the NBA season continues, a championship contender. I assume they're a really well-oiled machine organization. As such a young announcer, how has it been dealing with the more experienced personnel? Is there any sort of them being snarky with you that you're younger, or are they super appreciative of you? And is it just a great relationship with that successful organization?
Well, you guys can tell that I'm pretty sarcastic and I like to joke around. So I think it's just natural with anybody that if that's who you are, then people like to go back and forth with you in that sense, in that way. And I was fortunate that Lawrence Frank is our team president on the basketball side. And I got to know Lawrence at a young age, just being with the New Jersey Nets. He was the head coach of the New Jersey Nets for many years. Obviously, my father has been their play-by-play broadcaster now for 26 years. So even before I was born, when I was just an idea for him, he was doing the Nets. And so Lawrence Frank, I knew. And so that made it easy. When I walked in day one, I could say, I'm comfortable with him. I got extremely fortunate that Doc Rivers is our head coach because he is, one, extremely media friendly, but two, he's just easy to talk to. And he's somebody who also likes to joke around. And if you got a good sense of humor, that helps you. But the other thing that helps me is what I was talking about before, the fact that I feel like I have the mind of a 55-year-old in the body of a new college graduate. And so for me, I feel like I can relate to a lot of different people. So whether that be our coaching staff, who I feel like I've gotten to know very well, of Doc Rivers and Sam Cassell and Ty Lue and Brendan O'Connor and John Welch and Rex Kalamian, some of these names you know, some you don't, but they're all fantastic and they're great people. Or whether it be some of our players. So Landry Shamet, Ivica Zubac, and I are all the same age. If Ivica Zubac was from America, he would have graduated the same year in high school that Landry and I graduated, which was 2015. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's easy to connect with those guys because we grew up at the same time. And Landry and I have a couple similarities. A lot of people have told us, hey, you'd be really good friends or something. I'm not somebody who's going to go out of my way to try to become best friends with the players, but I'd like to, at least just have decent relationships to the point where I can say, hey, what were you thinking here? Or what does this mean? And just have easy conversation. And that's been the case. And a big help for me, a big reason that I feel like I've broken through on some of the relationships with some of the guys is the Clippers have allowed me to do Q&As with a lot of these players after some of our home games for our season ticket holders. So I've gotten to do a Q&A with our rookies, Terrence Mann and Fiondu Kabengele. I did one with Landry Shamet, one with Rodney Magruder, one with Ivica Zubac, and one with Montrezl Harrell. And so just those alone, these guys start to say, okay, like I recognize him. He's on all of our planes and our buses. At least now I know who this is and I know he's on my side. So they're at least, I guess, more familiar with me and they're not worried that I'm going to screw them over or anything like that. I think that's been the biggest thing for me. But my whole goal is to try to blend in at the end of the day. I don't want to force myself.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Continuing with the Clippers organization, as all of us know, now is the time of sports documentaries. We all watched The Last Dance. There are many more coming out. One coming out is called Blackballed. It's about the Clippers organization and Donald Sterling, their former owner, who is a well-known racist, probably not a very good human being. But anyway, have you noticed any of the aftermath from the Donald Sterling days, or are the Clippers just a completely new organization from that?
Well, Nick, I would say that's a good guess that he's not a great human being. I would say you're probably right on.
I don't know him, but from all I do know.
I just like how you phrased it. I'd say you did it the right way. There's no aftermath. No, it's a completely new chapter in this organization, and it's all full steam ahead. And that's a huge courtesy of Steve Ballmer and everything that he's brought. The passion, the smart, savvy business mentality, but also just understanding that if you want to be a winner long term, if you want to be a champion in this league, you can't cut any corners and you can't cut any costs. And what I love that Steve does is he's willing to pay a premium for premium talent, if you will, and premium people. So that's not just the players, but that's Doc Rivers and his staff. That's people within the business office. That's people within the basketball office and our front office. The fact that he went after Jerry West and made sure that he was going to be a part of this future, despite him being one of the most beloved Lakers in NBA history, Jerry was willing to take on that challenge and actually go against what people see him as a Laker. And so he has that effect on people, but the best thing he does, and something that most owners don't do, is he allows everybody to do their job. He does not get in their way. And so it works as, like you said, a well-oiled machine, because everybody has their place and everybody knows their purpose and everybody does everything that they're supposed to do to make sure they fulfill that purpose. And so it has become a well-oiled machine as a result of all of that. And that is a huge, huge thanks to what Steve Ballmer has done.
That's really cool. I'm going to ask you a question right now that you probably don't want to answer, but to be respectful of your time, these are the questions we got to know.
Okay.
Recently, during this quote-unquote sports drought, many NBA stars and sports people have been releasing their top 5 greatest NBA players of all time, including guys like Paul Pierce and Charles Barkley recently. Yeah. If you don't mind, could you give us your list?
Yeah, I definitely don't love doing this. I don't love comparing eras. And I've been thinking about a top 10 kind of in no particular order. So top 5, Jordan, LeBron, Magic, Bird. That fifth spot is really what gets to you, but I'd say it's Kareem personally. Just you look at the stats alone; they're absurd. So those would be the 5. I can round out the 10 just because I'd been thinking about this. I'd put Jerry West because I'm biased, Bill Russell, Wilt, and Kobe.
Okay, that's great. I like that list a lot more than Charles Barkley's and Paul Pierce's. So, yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. And let's see if we could get some more Sports Illustrated posters for 2 out of 3 of you guys, because 1 is just putting you to shame.
Well, maybe he'll lend us some.
I can try to send some, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Noah Eagle. If you guys like this video, like it, share it, subscribe it. Thank you so much. Noah, have a great rest of your quarantine. Have a great rest of your day. Would love to have you back on the show. Just let us know. Consider you a friend of the show. Thank you so much.
I'm glad to be a friend. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys, and stay safe.
Thank you.
You too.